Viewers, before this story sweeps you into chaos, post your location and your local time down below. I like knowing where this audience is listening from when the sparks start flying. The morning begins like something out of a postcard. Daniel Harrington on his deck, coffee steaming, Georgia pines kissed gold by June sunlight. That serenity lasts until the gravel crunches under the sharp rhythm of Patricia Donovan's shoes. She's HOA president, clipboard in hand like it's a medieval mace, and her declaration hits harder than the caffeine. She tells him with all the drama of a reality TV finale that his entire house is on her land. He nearly spits coffee across the rail because this is the same woman who's been camped out in her 40-foot RV on his property corner for 2 years. 3 years earlier, Daniel thought he'd bought paradise, 10 wooded acres in Pine Ridge Estates, perfect for the custom house he'd been sketching since college. The bylaws looked tame, no neon roofs, no livestock circuses, things he could live with. What the paperwork didn't spell out was Patricia. 8 years of rule had turned her into a pearl-wearing autocrat who power-washed her driveway in heels and treated code enforcement like a Netflix binge. The first time she appeared, Daniel was just clearing brush. She informed him he needed a vegetation removal form in triplicate. When he explained it was outside the HOA's architectural review zone, she narrowed her eyes and said she'd be watching. He thought she meant figuratively. She did not. 6 months later, Patricia wheeled up in her Winnebago, claiming she had to temporarily park on an easement while her driveway was redone. She pointed to Daniel's corner lot, insisting it was common ground based on a dusty clause from 1973. Historians still argue whether the 70s produced more disco tracks or more bad land deals, but Daniel, distracted by permits, let her stay a week. That week metastasized into 2 months, then 2 years. Slowly her setup blossomed, stepping stones, herb garden string lights. Then came the outdoor kitchen, a pizza oven supposedly for community events, and even a flagpole flying the stars and stripes beneath her own HOA crest. Neighbors noticed. Soon her mixers drew cars like a county fair, complete with an above-ground pool and gazebo. Daniel sent polite emails. She replied with adverse possession claims and references to a surveyor named Winston who only worked through cosmic alignment. Certified letters from Daniel's lawyer boomeranged back unopened, returned to sender, scrawled in glitter pen. He had the receipts, but Patricia had the audacity. When construction on his house began, she hovered like a hawk over field mice, snapping photos, muttering about ancestral rights. Then she appeared clutching what she called an original land grant from 1864. Printed on fresh Office Depot paper, it referenced landmarks like a Starbucks and a CrossFit gym, anachronisms so glaring even a middle schooler could spot them. When Daniel laughed, she accused him of historical revisionism and threatened to contact the media about his theft of indigenous land, despite not being indigenous herself. Soon the sheriff arrived, summoned by Patricia's frantic calls about his illegal structure. Daniel's deed permits and county survey cleared him. She called it conspiracy, demanded a supervisor, and shouted about maritime law. By now, even the deputies were chuckling. But Patricia wasn't going anywhere. Like a suburban glacier, she kept sliding further onto Daniel's lot. What began as a nuisance was evolving into open war, and Daniel knew he had to act before her fantasy kingdom swallowed half his acreage. Daniel hires a professional survey crew with the seriousness of a man commissioning NASA to measure moon craters. Drones fly, GPS markers blink, aerial photographs get dusted off from decades past. The result, Patricia's RV sits 37 feet inside his property line with her pool, gazebo, and pizza oven sprawling across a 1/4 acre. It's like catching a raccoon who not only raided your trash but also built a summer home in it. Armed with thick binders of evidence, Daniel files trespass charges and a civil suit. Word spreads through Pine Ridge faster than free barbecue, and by the next HOA board meeting, the clubhouse is standing room only. Folding chairs scrape the tile, neighbors cluster with popcorn energy, And even Harold Fitzgerald, once fined by Patricia for leaving trash cans visible 31 minutes too long, leans forward like a man about to see long-awaited payback. Daniel presents methodically, surveys aerial photos, a neat timeline showing Patricia's gradual creep. Gasps ripple when he cites bylaw section 12.4. Any structure illegally on private property for over 365 days may be claimed as abandoned by the rightful owner. Patricia has clocked 738 days. It's a mic drop moment, though Daniel keeps a straight face. He wants law, not theatrics. Well, maybe just a little theatrics. Patricia's rebuttal is pure spectacle. She accuses the surveyor of bias because he's her ex-husband's cousin. She cites her spiritual advisor who confirmed her ownership through crystal meditation. She even insists her RV isn't technically touching the ground but hovering slightly above it, thus free from property law. Historians still argue whether medieval alchemists were more delusional than modern HOA presidents, but the board isn't buying her version of levitating Winnebagos. The board, long cowed by her tyranny, suddenly tastes freedom. Harold, with years of pent-up irritation, motions to support Daniel's claim. The vote unanimous minus Patricia's furious no. Cheers erupt, neighbors rise, clapping a few even whistle. Patricia's face purples into a shade rarely found outside eggplants. She shrieks about constitutional rights, forgetting she authored half the bylaws, now crushing her. When she tries to slam her gavel, Harold calmly pries it away, reminding her she's suspended pending investigation. Removal day turns into neighborhood theater. Folks drag lawn chairs, coolers pop open, and a teenager hawks lemonade. The tow truck driver arrives unfazed by Patricia chaining herself to the RV bumper. She gives up once she realizes she forgot the padlock key. Police stand by sipping coffee, amused but ready. Patricia tries claiming mechanical failure, but the driver points out the RV hasn't moved under its own power in 2 years. Probably couldn't if it tried. The cables tighten, engines hum, and Patricia's palace of delusion jerks forward. She marches behind it down the street, yelling about tyranny. Neighbors cheer like fans at a football game. For Daniel, it's vindication, though he senses something darker beneath her antics. And sure enough, during cleanup, crews discover lines spliced into his water and electrical mains. Patricia hasn't just squatted, she's been stealing utilities. $8,000 worth. The trespass saga is about to shift into criminal territory. The discovery of the spliced utility lines turns Daniel's property battle from neighborhood soap opera into full-blown courtroom drama. The utility company investigates and confirms that Patricia has been siphoning off water and electricity for 2 straight years. $8 grand in stolen services. What had been a civil dispute suddenly smells like fraud. At the next HOA meeting, ironically one she called a motion for Daniel's expulsion, uniformed officers stroll in. They wait patiently while she delivers a tirade about Daniel's moral failings, then step forward with quiet authority. The room freezes as Patricia is informed she's under arrest for theft and fraud. She sputters, waves her pearls like a talisman, and finally faints in a theatrical swoon. Though the bailiff notices, she carefully braces her fall with one hand. It's less tragedy, more high school drama club. The trial moves swiftly. Patricia's attorney argues she believed the splices were part of HOA utilities. The prosecutor counters with receipts, cash payments to a shady contractor, diagrams of the illegal taps, and even photos of Patricia standing nearby with a flashlight. The judge is not impressed with her sovereign citizen defense or her claims of exemption from property law. He hands down 18 months probation, 40 hours of community service teaching property law at the very community center where she once held mixers and restitution of $12,000. Neighbors chuckle at the poetic justice. Harold in particular can't stop grinning. Patricia, queen of fines and citations, now sentenced to lecture about the rules she twisted. Daniel, though, doesn't gloat. He accepts the restitution, repairs his lines, and walks the perimeter of his land, finally unburdened by the creeping shadow of Patricia's RV. As the dust settles, Pine Ridge feels different. Freed from Patricia's reign, neighbors start volunteering for the board, organizing potlucks that don't involve recruitment speeches, and even helping Daniel finish the landscaping around his new home. One evening he stands on his deck again, coffee warm in his hands, watching the sun stitch gold across the trees. The same scene as that morning months ago, but now the air is calm, not bristling with absurd threats. Historians still argue whether suburban rebellions end with fireworks or fainting spells, but in Pine Ridge, the climax was a tow truck hauling away a Winnebago. And for Daniel, the true victory isn't restitution or legal precedent, it's peace. He can sip coffee without looking over his shoulder, build without harassment, and laugh when neighbors bring up, "Remember that hovering RV?" The wind down comes slowly, like exhaling after a long sprint. Picture the pines swaying gently, cicadas weaving their steady summer rhythm, and a quiet breeze rolling off the ridge. Daniel's house stands solid, every nail and board earned through patience, grit, and just enough humor to weather 2 years of madness. The neighbors rest easier, too, knowing the tyrant in pearls can no longer wield bylaws like weapons. So as night drapes itself over Pine Ridge, the windows of Daniel's home glow softly. Inside, he stretches out on the couch, grateful for ordinary silence. Justice has spoken. The land is his again, and the chaos has finally ebbed away. If you're listening now, let your shoulders drop, breathe deeper, and let that picture of peace tuck itself into your evening. Justice, like rest, sometimes takes time, but it always arrives.